Okay, mile 15 and 16 hit, and I remember realizing that I was halfway, and I'd already been running 3 hours. My marathon took me 4 hours, and I was already at 3 hours. It's like, wow. I have a long ways ahead, which was disheartening. Because I was already tired because I'd gassed myself out at the beginning. I know I was feeling that catch up to me at this point. And it was also just getting long. At this point, technically, this is also my longest trail run. My long run was a hike. But this, getting to mile 16, that's my longest trail run I've ever done. I've run longer than that. I've run a marathon before, but this is my longest trail run with all the elevation gain and loss and whatever. There's just a lot left, so that was a hard moment. I would say it was a wall. I don't think I hit a wall in my races leading up to this, but this was a wall, a mental wall. This is your host, Brendon, and you're listening to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. This podcast is all about helping you run your first ultramarathon and beyond. Tune in to hear new and experienced ultra runners share how they got into running in the first place, what inspired them to run an ultra, training and race day tips, and the gripping story of their first ultramarathon. Prepare yourself to be inspired as you hear stories of grit, sometimes failure, but ultimately triumph when our guests finally cross the finish line. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Ordinary to Ultra podcast, where we share inspiring and relatable stories of ordinary people like you and me becoming ultramarathon runners. Today is a very special episode. I started this podcast originally as a solution to my own problem. The problem was, where are all the stories of the regular, normal, ordinary people that are running ultramarathons? I want to hear how they did it. I am not a professional runner by any means, so when I hear stories of Courtney Dauwalter and other famous ultramarathon runners, it just doesn't really help me know how I can prepare for an ultramarathon. So I created this podcast to get the stories from ordinary people of how they got into running, how they trained for and eventually ran an ultramarathon. And we get to hear the awesome stories of their ultramarathon running day, to hear how it went and if the training worked, or what they might change. So I created this as a solution to my own problem, and I have now crossed the finish line. I ran my first DK ultramarathon, about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So woohoo, I did it, which is super exciting. It was an amazing experience. And so today I come on by myself to give you that experience. I'll just interview myself as if I was one of y'all, one of my normal folk that I bring on, ask the same questions and give you the same stuff, though I may go into more detail because I took lots of notes and can on my training and on the race day experience. So hopefully I can give you as much information as possible on how I was able to achieve this. Yeah. So let's do this thing. First question always is, tell me a little bit about yourself. So I am Brendon Boren. I'm the host of the Ordinary to Ultra podcast. I live in Hiram, Utah, which is at the very top of Utah. It's about an hour and 30 minutes from Salt Lake City, north of Salt Lake City. I'm right next to Idaho. It feels maybe more like Idaho. Well, it feels like a mix of Idaho and Utah where I live. But we have super beautiful mountains here that are way less populated than the Salt Lake area mountains. So I get all the trails to myself and a few mountain bikers. We have no quarrel with them. I live here with my family, my wife, my almost 3-year-old daughter, and my brand new son, who was born about a week and a half before my first ultramarathon, which I did not plan, really, which was a little crazy, but it worked out. Email marketing person mainly, though I'm kind of branching out into other marketing spheres. I guess you could say I do marketing for a company called ClickBank. Yeah. And I do this podcast for a fun side project that I've really enjoyed. And a fun marketing side project, but a passion project as well. And it's just been really fun doing it. So let's see. Was that all those intro questions? I am 27 years old as well, for those listening. So I am relatively young, you could say. So maybe that makes running ultramarathons easier. I don't know. But I have brought on many a middle age or even 60, 70-year-olds on the podcast. So no excuses, those listening. You can do this. Okay, so when did I get into running and why? I got into running originally to lose weight and get outside. You may have already heard me say these things. I went over a lot of these details in episode 8 along a ways back. If you want to hear the story of my first marathon, you should go listen to that episode. Because that was a big step on my training journey towards this ultra. But anyways, I got into running as a way to lose weight and get outside. It was the winter of 2023. It's probably January. And I just felt I work remotely, so I don't get out of the house much. And I didn't have any reason to get out of the house at that point. I just worked, had my family at home, and I didn't do much extracurricularly except for ski. So on the weekend I'd get out, but during the week I'm inside. I didn't leave, and it was kind of driving me crazy. I came up with running as a way to get outside and also be healthy and exercise to hopefully lose some weight. I was like 180, 185 pounds, had a little dad belly going on, nothing crazy, but I didn't want to get more heavy, so I thought running might be a good way to control that. That was winter of 2023. So I'll just continue my running journey from that point. So I started running like a mile around my house, around my neighborhood, and that felt pretty good. I had no problem running a mile. When I say running too, like I'm not running super fast. I'm kind of doing the ultramarathon thing, unintentionally running more like 10-minute miles, probably kind of slow, moderate running, jogging sort of stuff. And at that time I was trying to figure out when I should run, like what time of the day. I tried running in the morning a few times. I remember going out, and it's freezing. It's really cold in the morning. It's below freezing in the morning in Hiram, Utah during the winter. It's like 17 degrees usually, sometimes colder, which is pretty cold to be running. Definitely need like a base layer, a mid layer, and probably a shell at that point. And probably 2 layers of pants as well, maybe 3. My shell wasn't heavy layer by any means, but even with all those layers, I remember going out and putting on a ski mask and goggles, because the most uncomfortable part of running in that cold, that level of cold, was my face being exposed, and the rest of me was covered and good, but my face was just really cold. Like, what, just standing there, it's fine. But when I'm running in the wind, it's like the air is blowing in my face. It just was really cold. So anyhow, tried different times of the day, and I ended up liking running at lunchtime during the winter. Because lunchtime temperatures are more like 30 degrees, which is way more doable than 17. And the sun is sometimes out, or at least it is warmer. So I can usually get away with a base layer and a mid layer, and that's it. And nothing on my face. So that's nice. So anyway, I started out running that 1 mile and it was good. And then I tried to increase that mile, and around 2 or 3 miles, probably after about running 2 miles, my ankles would get super inflamed. My knees may have hurt a little bit as well, but the worst thing was my ankles. They'd get super inflamed. Every step hurt. And I remember being like, what the heck is happening? Like, the first mile was fine. Why am I in so much pain now? So that was a roadblock. I didn't have running shoes at this point. I had some Allbirds Mizzles jogger shoes. They're supposed to be like jogging running shoes, but I can assure you they are not. Or maybe they would be like, the problem with them is they were really stiff and hard. They weren't very springy and cushy like a lot of other running shoes are. So my ankles hitting the ground over and over and over and over and over again were just taking way more shock than they were used to. And so they would get inflamed. Tendonitis, you would probably call it. So I looked up ways to mitigate that and found out that I probably needed better shoes. So I got myself a pair of Hoka Challengers, which is a great line when you're getting into running because it works for both road and trail. So, and they have a Gore-Tex version, which I needed for winter because snow. And I knew I'd be probably running a little bit in the snow. So I got those, and immediately I could run that 3 miles, 2 to 3 miles without pain. It was awesome. I attribute that to how the Hoka Challengers and most Hokas are pretty cushy and springy and lessen the impact that happens on your joints, on your ankles and knees. So that immediately made my joints happy, and I could run more like 3 miles without getting that pain, but I would still get that pain. Now I know, I know more ways to mitigate that pain. One was getting the running shoes, but also I need to warm up before certain types of runs. So winter runs, you're cold, your body's cold. It's easier to, I think, be tight and stiff and get that tendonitis. So warming up slower, not at your full-on pace, was a good way for me to avoid getting that pain. Sometimes I still experience that pain if I am in the summer and I start going up a steep trail right off the bat. Let's say I'm doing a hill training day, got a couple thousand feet of elevation gain, and there's several trails around here that just go straight up from the beginning. And if I start fast on those, my ankles will get inflamed as well. Like I'm starting out too fast, and my ankles are more engaged and used in hill training because there's like that incline, and your ankle has to like push off. Like I'm using that ankle tendon more in those situations. So yeah, I have to take it easy and I have to hike for like 5 to 10 minutes or something before I start running to warm up those ankles. Anyway, so if any of y'all are experiencing like ankle and knee pain, know that it could be shoes, and warming up also helped me. And I know strength training can also help mitigate ankle and knee pain if you if you strengthen certain muscles around your joints, it helps support those joints while you run. So I hadn't strength trained at all really until after my 50K actually. So I can say I ran it without strength training. It's possible. Probably have a better time if you do strength train, but you don't have to, because I was very against strength training at the time because I wanted to be outside running, not in a gym pump and iron. So anyway, so I figured that out, which was freeing. So I was feeling that tendonitis less and less, and I was able to increase my miles very slowly. I again got out running to lose weight and be outside, and had no goals really except for do it. My goals at the beginning were just to go out and run, and I was increasing the miles out of interest more than like goal and necessity because I had no races. I will say too, part of what made running stick for me, you've maybe heard me say before, is listening to audiobooks. I will run the same route like during the winter, this last winter, that I ran that first winter. The first winter, I listened to a book called Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and sometimes I will pass certain places that I ran during that first winter, and I will remember like feeling things that I felt or remembering things I listened to while I was listening to an audiobook, which is really weird. It's like this like nostalgia moment that hits me, and I'm like, whoa, I felt this, and I remember reading this at one point. Yeah, it's kind of weird. But all this to say, I really enjoyed listening to audiobooks and still enjoy listening to audiobooks while I run. It just helps me zone out and enjoy a good story and relax. Whether it's in the morning or in the afternoon during the winter, it's just nice to have that relaxing book time. Yeah, so that's part of what made me want to keep running. I just really love that book time, especially since running the winter is like miserable. It can seem like people hear me say I started running the winter and they're like, what? That's the worst time to start running. But I loved the audiobook part, and that really kept me going because, yeah, it's not necessarily the best time to get outside and run in the winter. So I kept the miles going up, and I remember getting to running 4 or 5 miles at a time in like I think I had a 3-mile route, and then on my other day I was running probably just 2 days a week, I think, at the beginning. The other day I'd run longer, see how far I could go. I remember getting to 4 or 5 miles and thinking, I bet I could run a race or like do some sort of race in the area. That would be fun. So I I looked around for races in the area. This was probably getting to late winter or spring that I was thinking about this. And I ended up signing up for a July 15K, which is 9 miles. Yeah, I think I signed up for that in May. So we're in, like, I say late winter because winter goes through April pretty much here. Spring doesn't exist except for like the month of May. And then it's summer. So I probably signed up for that in May. Yeah, let's see. Yeah, so I kept running probably 2 days a week still, maybe 3. I won't check that data for you because we have a lot to go into today. But running probably 3 to 4 miles for a regular run, and then I was doing a third run because I was doing a long run and seeing and just upping that long run by like a mile each time. So I was just road running, adding miles in by doing extra loops around my city that I live in. Though I do remember, I think it was a week or 2 before the race. 9 miles is a long ways. I really wanted to know that I could run it before I ran the race. So I made a 9-mile route, and I ran 9 miles from up Blacksmith Fork Canyon. I had my wife drop me off at a point up there. And I ran down the canyon back to our house. It was so long. Like, this was the longest I had ever ran. Like, I couldn't see my house. I was in the middle of a canyon. And I had to run all the way to my house, which is then in the middle of the town that's outside of this canyon. Like, it was a long ways, but I did that as I'm in the morning on a Saturday, and I ran that 9 miles with probably had like a handheld water and no energy, like I don't think I had a Cliff Bar or anything before or during. And I did it, and I remember being like, that is awesome. Like, I can run a long ways. Like, and I hurt. I'm pretty sure I was pretty dang sore after that, but impressed with myself. Anyway, then I go and run. I run the 15K in July. I ended up running it 20 minutes faster than I had anticipated. I had ran that first 9-mile run in like an hour and 50 or 40 or something. So I thought I was going to do that time again. I think it was like 9-10 minute miles, mile pace. But I ended up running with a neighbor during the race, and we just kept going this fast pace from the beginning. We started at like an 8-minute mile pace. It is down a canyon, so that helps. It's like a negative grade, so we're going downhill, not uphill. For the majority, there might be a half mile that is uphill and the rest is down. So we ran this crazy 8-minute 30 pace the entire time, which I didn't know I was even capable of, because I normally run like 9-minute 30 miles or 10-minute miles. I was more about running the distance and not caring about how fast. And I still am that way. But the race vibes get you going, and having a partner there kind of makes you want to run faster. So I ran in an hour and 20 the 15K and blew my mind. I was like, wow, I am capable of going a lot faster than I thought and really doing hard things. So after that, I immediately knew I wanted to run farther. I wanted to do a half. In fact, I think before I had even ran the 15K, I had identified a half marathon that I would sign up for if the 15K went well. And it did, so I signed up for the half marathon in August, and it was a trail half marathon. And I had run pretty much, I think I'd only run on road. So this trail half marathon, I don't think I really knew what was coming. Maybe I ran a couple trails in preparation for the trail half. But a month after this 15K, this trail half comes up. I'm already pretty much trained up. I did not run a half marathon before the half marathon like I did with the 15K, because it kind of killed the joy when I finished the 15K that I had already run that distance technically, so it wasn't as cool. So this time, I think I ran a max of like an 11-mile run or something. And I knew, that would be enough. Yeah, I know that I didn't get big into trail running until after that half. So I think mostly road running got me there, and ran that half marathon. And I ran it really well. There's 1,000 feet of elevation gain over the half. It wasn't a lot, but there were some pretty gnarly hills, and I mostly ran up them, probably walked a few times, but you get in the Congo line and of people on the single track trail, and it just makes you want to keep going because someone behind you is kind of like on you, and you just kind of want to keep the pace and not get past. So I remember conking it, or bonking. That's that the trail runners say. I bonked at mile 12. I was so tired, dehydrated. Yeah, and I was walking quite a bit at that point because I was just freaking tired. But I ran it in, ended up jogging it in really slowly. I didn't do, up to this point, I hadn't done any sort of like nutrition really, or electrolyte stuff either. So hence me gassing out at mile 12. I think the half marathon is the last distance you can kind of fudge it without dialing in your nutrition and electrolytes. And even then, you'll have a much better time running a half marathon, especially on trail, if you do have that dialed in. I imagine I ate a Cliff Bar before and maybe one during, but past that, I don't think I did anything except water. To think I was quite crampy and not feeling good after that half marathon. But I did it and immediately knew I could do more. So I think before even the half marathon happened, I had identified a 50K that I wanted to run. The Mid-Mountain 50K in Park City, which was a part of a similar, well, it was in the same place as my half marathon. My half marathon was in Park City on trail, and I heard about this 50K and I said I need to do that because I really like trail. Like this is that race was like, dang, I really like trail. I should run a 50K. I didn't even think about the marathon at that point. So I'd identified that 50K and decided I would run that a year from then in August. So that is when I mentally signed up for a 50K. I signed up for it later. But yeah, that's what got me into it. I just wanted to see how far I could go. Like you keep increasing distance and running farther and you just want to know how far you can go. That's what it is for me. Or that's what it was for me at that point, the challenge of how far I can go. I want to say too, I learned about ultramarathon running probably sometime while I had been running that year. I watched I actually honed in on the exact video that I watched on YouTube, but I watched a 100-mile ultramarathon video on YouTube and was like, what is this crazy like group of people out there that's running 100 miles? Who are these people? The video was called, it's by REI. It's called REI Presents How to Run 100 Miles. And it's a story of two friends who train together and then run this 100-mile ultramarathon together. I don't remember what ultra it was. I didn't watch the video again, but I found it. I thought I'd share it with you guys. And then I watched several Billy Yang videos as well. He has lots of well-produced 100-mile and other distance ultramarathon videos. And I just thought it was really intriguing. Like, man, these crazy athletes are just running super long distances. And man, that would be cool. Like, it would be cool someday, but like not even fathomable still running that far. But I learned about ultramarathons and at some point learned there were shorter ultramarathons like a 50K. And I mentally signed up for that 50K after that half marathon. And I also, but like a week or two after, I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that 50K. I was like, I should not skip the marathon. So I did sign up for a marathon that happened before the 50K because I didn't want to miss that step. Cool. So that is like how I got into it. Now I'll get into my training. This is probably going to be a longer episode. Heads up, probably an hour and a half. But I'm going to give you all the details I can. So hopefully this can help you compare to yourself and create your own training plan and get you to your first 50K. But this is, I think, going to be the most helpful stuff. Like, I'm going to tell you the training that I did that got me to the 50K finish line. So I signed up for a triple race series that ended in the 50K. So there were two races before that. There was a race in June, a race in July, and in August, ending with the 50K. The first was a half marathon. It's actually the same half marathon that I did the one that I just described. Is that same half marathon, but then also a 25K in July, 16 miles, with a lot of elevation gain. I think it was between 3 and maybe 3,500 feet of elevation gain, pretty much straight up the mountain and then straight down the mountain at Park City. And then the 50K. The Mid-Mountain 50K is 31.1 miles. and had a little over 3,000 feet of elevation gain and about 4,500 feet of elevation loss. So it actually starts kind of high. There are climbs, especially one at the beginning, and then there's a lot of loss at the end when you like go down the mountain to a parking lot. So that's what that race looks like. It's definitely a mountain 50K. There's a lot of flatter 50Ks and stuff out there, maybe in the Midwest. I've interviewed many folk in like Tennessee where there are mountains too, but there's also some flat, and there's plenty of flat states out there. Yeah, this is definitely a mountainous 50K. Cool. So what did my training look like for this? Well, I kept training right after that half marathon in 2023 because my marathon was coming up in January. So my base run for that half marathon was 6 miles, and that has stuck with me for like since then. My normal run that I do for like a base run is 6 to 7 miles usually. Sometimes that's road, sometimes that's on trail, but 6 miles is like a wonderful number because the run usually takes about an hour, maybe a little over if it's on trail, which is really easy to get away with at lunch or in the morning before work. It's like the magic distance for me. I don't know if y'all have that, or maybe you'll find a magic distance for you, but I think it's like the perfect distance for a training run now in these upper mile races that I'm training for. If you're running something smaller, you probably don't need to go that long. But so yeah, I trained for the marathon. I won't get into the training for the marathon. You can listen to episode 8 of Ordinary to Ultra if you want to hear how I prepared for that marathon, because that is a great step. I would recommend everyone run a marathon before running a 50K because it's easier. Maybe not on the joints, but it is easier because there's less elevation gain, probably. Maybe no elevation gain. Mine was downhill. And the confidence that marathon gave me in my ability to run any distance, it was like immutable at that point. I knew I could run any distance I wanted if I just trained for it, which was just, yeah, this incredible confidence boost that I recommend everyone get by running a marathon. Like, you run a marathon, a 50K is 5 miles more than that. Of course you can do 5 more miles, Anyway, so after the marathon, I kept that base mileage through the winter because I had a while before the races would start and before I really needed to get building my stamina before I could even get on the trails, because it's the winter and I could be running on trails in the winter. I wanted to be skiing on the weekend. So I was just running during the week, 6 miles. I have these 6-mile loops that I have identified in my city that I live in. One's more scenic and one's more like through the town. And I just switch between those 6 or 7 miles twice a week. So I kept that base so I didn't have to start from zero when it started warming up. So I was just doing that, chilling, listening to audiobooks, keeping that mileage there. Okay, and then in May, I think it was, so from February to May, I was just doing that. Then May comes, and it's warming up and getting to that first half marathon. So I started adding in my long run again on the weekends. So my midweek runs stay about 6 miles, and then that long run will change in distance depending on what I am training for. I should have brought up my Garmin Connect, but I'm pretty sure the first long run I did was Logan River Trail. It's a 10-mile, very gradual trail in Logan, Hiram, Utah. Probably 500 feet of elevation gain over 10 miles. It's an out and back. So anyway, I started adding in those long runs on trail. And by the way, I only I did a few trail runs in the fall, and I loved it so much, and I started getting a little familiar with what routes were available. But I was only just starting to get into trail running as a part of training for that marathon. And then when winter hit, I had to stop, but I loved trail so much, and that's where that love really started. But this season, in May, I started doing some serious trail running because there was no impending snow coming, and man, it really sealed it for me. I love trail running a lot more than road running. It's just I feel like I get into flow better when I'm trail running. The way you have to focus on the trail because you don't want to trip on rocks and roots, you're just more focused. When you're road running, you can kind of like look up and not have to stare at your feet. But trail running, you're staring at your feet, you're focused, and you get into this groove. Yeah, call it a flow or like the zone. And it's just a beautiful thing. And you're in nature and seeing beautiful things. You can stop and take a look where you are and enjoy the scenery. Anyway, trail running, superior if you can do it where you are. I know there's forests all over the country that, man, it just feels better for some reason to be in the wilderness. Anyway, so yeah, adding in those long runs, those often looked like 10-mile to half marathon distance, with varying elevation gain. But pretty much I was running 26 to 30 miles a week. With probably 3,000 to 5,000 feet of elevation gain, depending on the week. So I didn't put in that many miles. I have interviewed many people on this podcast that some put in 40 to 50 mile weeks training for 50K, and it's just not necessary. You'd be stronger. You would feel less pain probably in the 50K because you have trained past maybe the necessary point, which is great. Put in as many miles as you can, as you want. But know that if you have other responsibilities and things that make it so you can't put in that time, you're okay. I run 3 days a week. I put in 26 to 30 miles a week. And I did get my elevation gain in because I knew I would be experiencing that in my races. And I was fine. I completed the 50K. So that is all that was necessary. I probably could have completed it running with less elevation gain or even less miles. I think the brain, like the Goggins thing. People always come on the podcast talking about how Goggins inspired them to do these things. Yeah, you can do pretty much anything you put your mind to. I think anybody could probably get up and run a marathon without training. It would suck and you would hurt, but you could jog a marathon and you could probably do something similar for 50K. I don't recommend that, but I'm just saying your mind is stronger than you think, and you can do more than you think you can. So anyway, that's what my training looked like though. And yeah, at the beginning I wasn't putting in super serious elevation gain, but then after that half marathon, I found this route near Hiram, Utah that runs like straight up a mountain, crosses the mountain, and then runs down a different canyon. So it's like it goes up one canyon, crosses the mountain in between these two canyons, and then runs down this other canyon. And then it can even, on the face of that mountain, loop back up to the first canyon where I started. So it turns into this big circle or square, maybe you'd call it. It's more like it's probably more like a square. You run straight up a mountain, straight up a canyon, cross that mountain that you have pretty much climbed to another canyon, run down that, and then run across the bottom face of the mountain back to where you started. That had like 3,000, 3,500 feet of elevation gain, and ended up being about a half marathon, maybe a little longer if I did the full loop. Sometimes I would just run up, across, and down and stop there and have someone pick me up. But I loved that route, and I think that route alone really prepared me for the race. It wasn't super long. It was only about a half marathon, maybe 15 miles, but it had lots of gain, and it had me on my feet for a long time. I completed it between 3 and 3.5 hours. I've heard that running longer than that, gains you get past 3 hours are lower than the gains you get during the first 3 hours. As in, you're really training yourself in the first 3 hours, but then past that, the gains diminish. And you also increase your likelihood of injuring yourself by running for super, super long distances often. And for running for a long time. Anyway, so I really, the 15 miles was my longest long run, which is not that long. I counted my longest long run as a 20-mile hike that I did in the Tetons with 4,000 feet of elevation gain, but it was a hike. It was not a run. I went with friends, so we just did a hike, and we were on our feet for 12 hours. So I think it definitely trained me in some capacity. Definitely being on my feet for a long time was helpful, because in the ultra I would be on my feet for a long time, though I was not working at the intensity that I would be in the 50K. I think it was still helpful. It worked out. My longest real long run was like 15 miles. Then I did that 20-mile hike, and I said, this is just going to have to do, because I was busy, and that's what worked for me, because I was also just trying to have fun adventures too, which was what that Tetons hike was. So, yep. I'm looking at my notes here. That sums up my training. I had also figured out nutrition, and what am I just trying to say? Nutrition. I had figured out calorie intake and sugar that I needed, and also electrolytes. Over the marathon, I kind of tested lots of different things and figured out what works. And I continue to test, but yeah, so for the long runs, I would take energy. For my base runs, I usually don't take energy, and I just kind of like work off of whatever I've got in the tank in the morning, which usually works great. But long runs, I'd pop in some liquid IV, has some sugar as well. For the big, long 13, 15 miler with a bunch of elevation gain, I had 2 flasks of liquid IV, and then an extra just in case, which I usually would get into towards the end, of just water. And then I'd take a Cliff Bar before that run, and then some mango slices throughout, some dried mango, which is a really good, affordable, like, sugar option. I feel like those digest pretty fast and give me some good energy, whereas gels are maybe more expensive. But the caffeine from gels just hits different. Anyway, that's what I trained with. I had trained with gels during the marathon and planned on using them during the 50K, which I did do. But okay, all right. I think that's enough preparation. We've been talking for 50 minutes already. I think we're on track, though. I'm going to get into the story of the 50K. I have a bunch of notes here, so if I pause, it's because I'm trying to remember the things that happened. But let's get into around when the 50K happened. So I had already run those other 2 races. They went well. I will say the 25K, I ran it, and the heat got to me, and that kind of scared me, because I knew it would be just as hot in August as it was in July, and the heat at the end of the race of that 25K, man, it was just hot, and it got to me. I slowed down considerably, and I felt like it was pretty much because of the heat and maybe not being as hydrated as I could have been. So anyway, I didn't do a lot of heat training because I run in the morning. That had me a little scared, but I did do like 2 runs before the 50K that were midday. So like 80-degree weather, which is what it would be during the race. So maybe that helped. Anyway, so those races are done. I did my big training, my big run, my big hike, and then I tapered for a bit. And then a week and a half before the race, I had a baby. My wife had a baby, and I am in the same household, and I'm her husband. So we had the baby. His due date was actually the week of the ultramarathon, which would have been even worse for the ultramarathon. Of course, I'm so glad and happy to have another addition to my family. And I'm so glad he came early. He decided to come the week before, like a week before his due date, actually. So that was actually a blessing because it helped us kind of get regular and figured out before the race happened, which was fantastic. But baby came, he came well. No complications. Michaela was great as well. Fantastic. But when you have a baby, especially in the first month, you're just not getting sleep. So that presented an issue. But I chatted with my wife a few days before, and she was willing to. We usually split responsibilities at night. I change the diapers during the night, and then she does the feedings, which is definitely the worst part. I feel bad for her, but she took the diaper changes and feedings 2 nights before and the night before. And I say that because that was really important. I had heard somewhere, I can't remember where, that technically, maybe it was on this podcast talking to someone else. Sleep 2 nights before the race is actually more important than your sleep the night before, because your sleep the night before is probably going to suck anyways. You got the race jitters and you got to wake up early to get to the starting line, whatever. So yeah, I planned to get like 8 hours of sleep uninterrupted 2 nights before, and then get whatever sleep I could the night before. And that really worked well. I felt great before the race, and I did not feel great before that because I was waking up like 3 times a night to change diapers. So note to all y'all listening, yeah, get good sleep the two nights before the race. That was really good for me. Okay, the race is in Park City, Utah. It's called the Mid-Mountain 50K, 3,000 feet of elevation gain of descent, 4,500 of descent. So I went to a condo in Park City that my wife's family owns. I went there by myself. Didn't want to have to move my family with me, which, it's too bad. It would have been fun to have them at the finish line, but it was better because we just had the baby. So Michaela's mom came up and helped her while I ran this race. Shout out to my wife and her family for being so supportive of me doing this still. Like I said, I hadn't planned to have this happen when we had the baby. It could have been seen as selfish to continue doing this race, even though we just had a baby and my wife needed me. But I just really appreciate my wife being cool about letting me continue this because I'd been planning on it for so long, and for her family support. They're super cool. So I went to this Park City condo by myself, and I brought all my stuff with me, and I just slept there so I could get up at 4 instead of 2. I would have had to get up at 2 in Logan and drive all the way to Park City. So that would have stunk. So yeah, I stayed at that condo. Yeah, that night I got there and laid out all my stuff, got my pack ready. I have I'll go into my gear so you can know what I use, and maybe you would want to use similar things and try out similar gear. Oh, you know what? I forgot to add something to this list. Yep, adding that right now. Okay. I have John G running shorts. John G is a great brand I recommend you look into. They're all about running in general is their brand, clothing for runners, but definitely long distance as well. Like, there's specific shorts made for ultramarathon running, the multi-short and probably the trail half tight, which I just ordered. But I have these John G Traverse shorts that have a built-in liner, and I love them. I chafe less in them, and they have this pocket on the side of the thigh that holds my cell phone. And on the other side, I could put other stuff in there too. And I just love that because I don't want to stick the cell phone in my vest because it's like a hassle to get it out. Anyway, that pocket on the thigh is fantastic. Fantastic shorts. Okay, carrying on. I had a Cotopaxi sun shirt for sun protection when the sun would come out, and not having to like worry about sunscreen. And it's super lightweight. Great sun shirt. 5-panel hat for looking cool and sun protection. Sunglasses, have some Hoka sunglasses. Injinji toe socks. Socks are really important to hone in on with running. Your socks and shoes really are probably the most important two pieces of gear, or some of the most important pieces of gear to hone in on before a ultramarathon. Injinji toe socks are fantastic. The toe, like the toes are separated, so the sock kind of like goes around each toe, which prevents all toe blisters for me. So I don't worry about toe blisters when I run anymore, which is fantastic. Normal socks, I'd probably have to worry about that, but they prevent that. And they have different weights of sock. There's a super lightweight, like thin, and then there's a regular, a medium, and then a thick. And I didn't realize how amazing that is, but depending on how tight your shoe is, if your shoe is relatively tight, you probably want a really thin sock. Either way, you probably want a thin sock. I got the super thin Injinji toe socks because in my marathon, I ran in some thicker socks and got a massive blister on the arch of my foot. It was the worst thing. And then I got a thinner sock, and I didn't get those blisters anymore. So I realized it was the thickness of the sock. It was like the distance between my sock and the shoe that actually like made a difference in me getting blisters or not. So the really thin socks on my Hoka and my Hoka Speed Goats together made it so I didn't get blisters, which was fantastic. So yeah, you just got to hone in on that in your own way, though. It may be different for you, but the Injinji toe socks are fantastic. They also have an ankle version that prevents rocks from getting in your socks, which is great. Okay, I have my Hoka Speed Goats. I like Hoka. They're really cushy shoes. Speed Goats are great for trail. They've got great lugs on the bottom for traction. They're just really, really comfy. I love them. Okay, I had gaiters to prevent rocks from getting into my shoes while I ran. I just didn't want to have to take rocks out of my shoe every couple miles, and the gaiters prevent that, which is fantastic. So I got some off of Amazon. I think they're called Catula gaiters. I recommend them for races. I don't run with them usually. During a race, it is a helpful thing to have one less thing to need to worry about. My vest is a Salomon Adv Skin 4-liter. It's fantastic. It has 2 soft flask water containers on the front of the vest for drinking. I usually put my electrolytes in one and then just water in the other, so I can have both and just have a nice swig of normal water and then also have my electrolytes over on the other one. They're great for races because you'll fill them up at the aid station. And yeah, so you don't need to have a like bladder in the back or anything. Yep. And it carried all the rest of my stuff. I had a jacket in there. It's a 4-liter. So yeah, I had a jacket in there. I have my poles hooked on the back of this thing and my nutrition in there too. And there's tons of front pockets and different areas to stash things. And so you can get organized. And, yeah, I love the vest. I'll probably get the 12-liter next for anything longer that I do. I had the Lecky Ultra Trail FX1 poles. Great poles. They're made of carbon fiber. They're super light. They have this glove that connects to the top that makes it easier to use the pole effectively. They're definitely a bougie, expensive option to get between the Black Diamond carbon fiber ones and these. I think the Lecky ones are better because of the glove. Anyway, great poles. I would definitely recommend poles for any races that involve a lot of elevation gain. And I had a Cotopaxi windbreaker and Gold Bond. I had Gold Bond as my chafe relief, which I'm so glad I had. I still ended up chafing, but the Gold Bond But that's because I stopped applying Gold Bond and it started raining. Anyway, I'll get into that, but Gold Bond was pretty good. Okay, for nutrition, I had a pupusa, like a Costco pupusa in the morning. Had a lot of sodium in it and some carbs and some protein. It's a good, quick thing for breakfast. During, I had GU gels for energy, LMNT for electrolytes. You might say, Element's fantastic. I have it in one flask. It's got 1,000 milligrams of sodium in it. It's a lot of sodium, which is really nice, because then in my other flask, I just have normal water. So when I want to swig a normal water, because sometimes you just don't want a mouthful of salt or sweetness or whatever the electrolyte stuff is, you know? So I got my normal water over here, which is nice. And then when I need it, I got my electrolytes and my sodium over here. So it kind of just packs it into, it packs a frick ton of electrolytes into one 16 ounce or 500 milliliter flask. It's also got potassium and whatever the other electrolyte is, but sodium's the most important. So, yeah, 1,000 milligrams is a frick ton of sodium. Okay, after that, I had some Cliff Bars too, and a Perfect Bar for energy. I had some Liquid IV just in case. My Liquid IV packets have less electrolytes, but they have sugar in them, so maybe I would want that if I felt like it. And the course provided a bunch of stuff too, so I didn't bring too much energy because I knew I'd probably be taking stuff from the aid stations. So cool. I had laid out all this stuff and packed it the night before. Cool. The night before, I called my wife at like 8. We talked for a little bit. I watched an episode of The Bear on Hulu, which is a fantastic show that you should watch. It will make you sad and feel things, and you'll love it or you will hate it. Anyway, I digress. The Bear is fantastic. And then I went to bed. It was probably 9 when I went to bed. Yeah. Before I went to bed, though, I checked the weather, and there was a possible rainstorm that was going to hit at 12 in the afternoon. Luckily, the race starts at 6 a.m., so I would be mostly done with the race, hopefully, by the time this storm rolls around. But I was like, dang, maybe I should have brought a rain jacket. But I had a windbreaker, and it's rain resistant, and it would have been fine. So I was like, yeah, it's whatever. And it's at the end, so we're probably fine. But, you know, you don't want to see rain on your race day, really. So that was a little unfortunate. But anyway, so I go to bed. I've got everything ready. I wake up at 4 a.m. and I get all my crap on. I get my engine shorts. Get all my, I get all my gear on. My race bib is already on. I got that on the night before. One less thing to do in the morning. I ate my pupusa and I drove to the bus. There is a bus pickup to take me to the start because this is a point-to-point race. So the end is not where the start is. So drove to the bus pickup and took this bus ride to Deer Valley Ski Resort where the race would start. I should mention too, pooping is important. I pooped once at the condo that I was staying at in the morning, and then I got another poop out when I got to the start of the race at one of the ski lodges. 2 poops. That's pretty good for me. Usually I'd like to get 3 out because my stomach and poop is just temperamental, but I got 2 out, and that is pretty good. Anyway, so yeah, I got to this lodge. I should mention too, I'd probably gotten 5 hours of sleep, 6 hours of sleep, maybe. Probably somewhere between 5 and 6 that night. But I felt great because I'd gotten sleep the night before. So, woohoo. I'm at the lodge. I'm chilling. There's a massive bathroom line. I'm just chilling by the bathroom line, talking to people, and met some cool folks. There are always cool folks running ultramarathons. So that was cool. One weird moment was there's this dude chilling, sitting on a bench, and there's this chick talking, and he goes, "What's up, sister?" And then she freaks out, and they embrace, and they have this moment, and it's like they had no idea that the other was running this race, and then they met up and hugged it out, and tears were shed, and it was like this thing. I was like, wow, we just experienced a moment. This sibling reunion moment. Anyway, weird thing that I remember, but had some nice convos. And then at about 5:50, I went out of the lodge and started going to the finish line or the starting line. It's pretty dark. There's like some light hue on the horizon. Like the sun is really just starting to come, but it's pretty dark. So a lot of people have headlamps. I brought one. I just didn't bring it out because I knew I'd be putting it away quickly. So, yep. Other thing that I brought, I did bring my headphones to listen to, or my earbuds to listen to an audiobook, but I actually didn't put that on yet because I got 4 hours of life in these Apple AirPods. So I started out the race with nothing and put them on later. But okay. So it's about 6:00. Got my watch going and started the race. So this is the start of the 50K. Whoo! Yeah, I'm feeling good. The race starts out going straight up this steep hill. So we're all like starting out, woohoo, and then everyone immediately starts hiking instead of running up this really steep incline. So that was a weird moment. This is a wide part of the trail though. So we're all just kind of hiking up this road, this dirt road up to the top of one of these mountains at the ski resort. It's a short distance to the top of this hill, less than a half mile. But yeah, an interesting way to start out with such a steep hill. But then immediately after this hill, it's probably towards the top of this hill that you started to be able to like not have the headlamp, which is great. So I could see pretty well. And then immediately there is a 1,000-foot downhill. It's just a big downhill, which is fun. Downhill's fun. It was for about 2.5 miles, 1,000 feet loss. Boom. So that was really fun. I was like, dang, this might be not good for my knees because I was kind of hauling down this hill. But they weren't hurting. So I was like, okay, we're fine. Keep hauling. So that was a fun way to start. But the not fun thing about starting with a big downhill is you probably have to go uphill after that. So we actually ended up having to climb that exact 1,000 feet back and then some immediately after. The race starts weird. It like goes in a little loop circle at the beginning, a small 5-6 mile loop, and then it starts going point to point. So we go down this mountain and then go right back up it, and was going pretty fast going up the hill. I believe I have my lap information here from my Garmin. I was doing 14. I did 14-minute mile going up, and then 12, 13. Like pretty fast for uphill, like, and straight up 1,000 feet again. It's the biggest climb is this right at the beginning, the longest climb. So I think I did that too hard. I think I was pushing myself faster than I should have, and I felt that. So I like tried to take it easy a little bit, but also there are 2 cutoffs in this race that I failed to mention earlier. One is at the first aid station around mile 6, and the second is around mile 21, 22. And the first aid, so that mile 6, you need to be there at 7:50. The race started at 6 a.m. So anyway, you have this pressure to like go sort of fast at the beginning because you don't want to have to flirt with the cutoff, but I think I still cooked faster than I needed to or should have. So yeah, that first climb, I didn't feel gassed out at that point, but probably around mile, let me look at my Garmin Connect again. When we got to the top of that climb, probably more like mile 7 or 8, I was kind of feeling a little tired. Like, man, I've really pushed it. So I had maybe a few walking moments, but I was still able to go pretty fast. But I was like, dang, I'm a little tired, which is not something you want to feel at the beginning of an ultramarathon, probably. Yeah, so I passed the cutoff, and I passed it like 40 or 50 minutes early before the cutoff. So I definitely went faster than I needed to. But that felt good. Like, yes, we're past the dang cutoff. Let's just get this race on. And I didn't feel worried about the second cutoff, but it was lingering there. Like, I do need to keep going because there is another cutoff. Yeah. Probably around mile 7 when I was sort of feeling like a little tired. There's also a super pretty lake. Again, this race goes, I didn't actually say this. The race goes across all these ski resorts pretty much. So it starts at Deer Valley Ski Resort, goes through Park City Ski Resort, which I know as Park City, and then also the Canyon Ski Resort, which they joined up a few years ago. But it goes across these three huge ski resorts, and then ends around the Olympic long jump spot in Park City, where the huge hill that launches people into the air, and they do the ski long jump. Yeah, that's where it ended. So the race goes across the mountains and ends there. So you're running through the mountains, never straight up a mountain, really, just like across mountains. Yeah. So I say that, you look out in the distance, you can see Park City town. You can see, like, we were on the backside of the mountain. You can see this beautiful lake. It was so pretty. I stopped and took a picture. You're in an ultramarathon, it's fine. You can take some stop moments and take a picture. It's probably around then that I turned on my audiobook too. I was over an hour in and started to feel like the flow and also a little tired. I was like, let's get the audiobook on to help me keep going. So I turned that on, and I honestly don't remember much of what happened between mile 10 and 16. I think I got in the zone and listened into my book, and I just was going. I was pretty quick at the early aid stations, filled up water if I needed to, but I was taking my element in my left flask and my water in my right as needed, and taking gels about every 45 minutes to an hour. Feeling all right, feeling pretty good for that first bit. Maybe a little tired from how fast I went. Yep. My pace was about 12 to 13 minute miles on average, which is like a great ultramarathon pace. It kind of accounts for the fast downhills and then the slower uphills and then the middle flat areas. Definitely happy with that pace. Okay, mile 15 and 16 hit, and I remember realizing that I was halfway, and I'd already been running 3 hours. My marathon took me 4 hours, and I was already at 3 hours. It's like, wow, I have a long ways ahead, which was disheartening because I was already tired because I'd gassed myself out at the beginning. I know I was feeling that catch up to me at this point. And it was also just getting long. At this point, technically, this is also my longest trail run. My long run was a hike, but this, getting to mile 16, that's my longest trail run I've ever done. I've run longer than that. I've run a marathon before, but this is my longest trail run with all the elevation gain and loss and whatever. There's just a lot left. So that was a hard moment. I would say it was a wall. I don't think I hit a wall in my races leading up to this, except for that 25K, actually, that wall mile 15 when it was super hot. But this was a wall, a mental wall. More than physical. Like, I knew I could keep going, but I was like, dang, I got a long ways left. Anyway, just needed to tell you that's how I was feeling at that point. Like, a lot of this race up to now, I'm kind of zoned out and just chugging along, but like I'm feeling it here at mile 15, 16. A little tired and mentally like, wow, I've got a lot left. Okay, aid station, there's an aid station around 16, maybe 16, mile 16 and a half. I filled up my waters. I was really thirsty. I'd gone through them, and so I filled them up, Probably had something to eat too. Like I had some of my gels, and maybe I cracked out my mangoes sometime around this point. I didn't eat much of what the course had, except for their water. But this guy, he was like, yeah, we asked when the next aid station was going to be. He's like, yeah, in 2 miles. It's just 2 miles away. So we're all like, sweet. And we get on our way and then finish my water in about 2 miles because I was a little dehydrated and needed to have more. So I drank my entire element. I had this is probably my second element and my water. I drank both and hit mile 2. So I go another 2 miles, probably mile 18 and a half. And there's no aid station. And I was like, what? I just kept going and, reach mile 19. And I'm like, where is the aid station? I had finished my water and I was really thirsty. I was like, I might die. I might die here because I'm thirsty. But then I was like, no, you're not going to die. You've got a lot in the tank, a lot of water in here right now. You'll make it to the next aid station. Had to do some self-talking. It's like, it'll come eventually. I just wish it was sooner than later. I wish that guy hadn't had it wrong. Yeah, to that point, hats off to the volunteers. I appreciate them. A lot of them were probably last second folk that did this thing, but they did not know a lot of the time where stuff was, how far stuff was away, and that's stuff that racers ask and need accurate information on. Anyway, quick Karen gripe. I wish the race folk knew better where stuff was. So I just kept going and going and going. I remember just really slogging through those 4-ish miles. Yeah, this is when I start doing 15-minute miles. I'm having some walking breaks and some really slow jogging miles before that the next aid station actually came. It was a little slow and not feeling good. Okay, but then that aid station came, and it was like the moment when you find the desert oasis. It was like, holy Hannah, thank you so much. I am so glad to see this aid station right now. I am so freaking thirsty. I'm hungry. Like, I'm feeling like I've got energy, but I need something solid in me right now. Like, I've had enough gels. I've had enough sugary mango. Like, I want something solid in me. So this aid station was just what I needed. I filled up my flasks and I drank them immediately. I fill up my water, chug it, fill it up again. Probably chugged that one too. I think I probably chugged 2, and then I filled up. Yeah, and then I filled up my flasks to have full when I would leave. But I just drank so much water. And I'm drinking a lot of water, guys, but you just need a lot of water when you run this long and uphill. And it's starting to get hot around this time too. Like, it started at 6, it was cool. And now the day is coming on and it's getting into the 70s and it should get into the 80s. So yeah, needing a lot of water. Yeah, so I also grabbed a Uncrustable peanut butter sandwich at this aid station, which also was just the best thing. It was something solid. It was like sugary, I guess, still, but the bread was like solid. It felt more solid than like the stuff I'd been eating up to that point, and that was just amazing. And I mean, good. It's a good thing it was a sugary thing, because that probably turned to energy more quickly than maybe like a burger, whatever would have. I am a little bummed, though, that there was never like the cool aid station that had quesadillas and burritos and burgers and stuff. That wasn't this race, which is too bad, because you hear about ultra marathons having the best food. This wasn't that. They did have stuff for us, but it was all packaged food and fruit. And fruit's good. I won't complain about that. I didn't have any, but fruit is a good option. But I know like solid meal options. Maybe that's because this is a shorter ultramarathon. I don't know. But okay, so I'm feeling great after I drink all that water and eat that food. And I chilled at this aid station for quite a while. I also drank some Coke. Oh, I forgot. But I stayed here. My split for this aid station was like 25 minutes. So I probably stayed here for like 10 minutes, just like chilling. I did hear a guy say he was like experiencing some heart stuff and like was like, I think I gotta pull myself. And I remember feeling really bummed for that guy. But um, and I just saw him walking around like waiting for the med folk to come up the dirt road that this aid station was at. That's probably sucked a lot. But I was feeling really great after I eaten and drinking all this stuff. So moving on, I leave this aid station and sorry, I'm like trying to read my notes here. The next aid station is the cutoff. It's at mile 22-ish and a half. So it's just 2 miles away from this mile 20 and a half aid station. I knew I was before the cutoff. Like I was pretty early, but I didn't know how early. I didn't really remember I knew the cutoff time was either 12 or 12:30. I don't remember what time it was that I was at mile 20, but I kept going and it was uphill. So this point was actually kind of rough for the legs, but mentally I was doing okay. Yeah, it was very rough on the legs, actually. I'm looking at my splits. So yeah, like I'm doing 15, 17-minute miles at this point because I think this is around when my like inner knee, like not the outside of my knee muscles, but the inside muscles around my knee, like my inner thigh, close to the knee, was just crampy, really crampy. Nothing else is crampy. The rest of my thigh is fine. My calves fine. In fact, my calves felt really strong throughout the race. Fun fact. But that inner knee was like really crampy. So I like had to like stop and take some walking breaks. I stopped completely one time. And it was the worst thing for that. Like the cramping really comes on when you stop moving, and like I tried to rub it out and whatever, it didn't work. The best thing to do was like walk and try to rub it out, but not stop. Stopping was not good. So anyway, the cramping sucked, but it wasn't like I can't move, I'm cramping so bad. It was like I'm feeling crampy. Sorry, my alarm's going off. So I need to like rub it out and drink more water, like see if I can like get it to go away. And it never came on super strong, but it was kind of this lingering crampy half cramp, and it sucked. But kept going, and I got to the cutoff, and I was an hour and a half. I got there an hour and a half before the cutoff time. That felt so good. I was like, dang, I am killing it. I am doing just great. And just reaching that cutoff felt incredible because after that point, there was literally nothing except for major injury or something that could stop me from finishing the race. There was no cutoff anymore. It's like I passed that. So literally I could walk to the end and I would finish, which just not having to worry about a cutoff felt so good. I talked to some folks who do timed races and there's no cutoffs. That's the freedom of doing races without cutoffs or passing the cutoffs, is that like you're like, wow, I know I'm going to finish this as long as I don't like totally destroy myself. And I try to not think about that. Like, yeah, I'm fine. We're not going to seriously injure ourselves. It's just, I just got to keep moving to finish now. Super great feeling. Let's see. So I'm feeling mentally fantastic after I finish that aid station and cutoff. I'm still going pretty slow because it's uphill. This is actually like from that mile 20 aid station to mile 25-ish. It was uphill, the last big climb. So I'm like, and I've got these crampy knee muscles, whatever. So I'm doing pretty slow. I'm like jogging, and then I'm like, I need to walk and like rub them out. So 17-minute miles going up this hill towards mile 25, towards the top of the race, the last peak, you would maybe say. Yeah, so that's my splits. The last half mile to mile 25 was really steep, and I like saw it. Like you can see straight up, it's more of a wide dirt road at this point, not single track. You just see how far up it goes. And I was like, no, I'm walking this. And everyone ahead of me is walking, and I start walking, and I look back, and everyone behind me is walking. Like we're all just walking this brutal uphill towards the top. Something fun is that at the top of towards the top of this climb, I found one of the guys that I had talked with at the beginning. So that was kind of fun. Brief words were shared. I don't remember what, but we were probably in the zone and just trying to conquer this dang climb. So I considered getting my poles out at this point, but then I was like, nah. And I actually didn't use my poles the entire race. I brought them just in case the cramping got so bad that I needed something to like lean on or help propel me, or I was just so low energy, I just needed the stability. But I actually ended up not needing them, which is cool, but I would rather be safe than sorry, so I'm glad I had them. But anyway, I get to the top 25. There's like a race volunteer at the top. It's like, guys, you made it to the top. It is literally all downhill from here, except for like a couple small climbs. That was an awesome moment for everyone. Yes, finally. There's this massive, like over 1,000 feet elevation decline at the very end, the last 6 miles. So I start that descent and I'm thinking this is going to be awesome, but it was not at the beginning. My knees are still crampy. That didn't stop just because it was downhill. So I start going downhill, but my downhill pace is like 11-minute, 12-minute. I think it was like 11-minute miles. Let's see. Yeah, maybe that's too nice. I got a 14-minute mile at mile 25 and a 13-minute mile at mile 26. So pretty slow, even though I'm downhill, because I'm just still cramping. Like energy levels are like mentally I'm doing great. I'm doing fine. And then energy levels doing pretty well. Still having the gels. The caffeine is probably super helpful too from the gels and the energy and the sugar, of course. But yeah, my cramping, man. So I get down a mile and we hit aid station 26, which is a really cool aid station because everything past this aid station pretty much is a new high score for me. A new distance high score. I had ran a marathon before. Everything past 26 miles is a new high score. That was like a mental high for me. When I started running and got to mile 27, I was like, take that. I was like, take that marathon. I would like say something out loud and like keep going, whatever. So do what you got to do to keep yourself jazzed while you're running 31 miles. So this aid station was a good one. The second thing that was the best thing ever about this aid station is I asked them if they had ibuprofen because I figured that would help with my knee muscle pain and just the pain that I was feeling in general from having run 26 miles in mountains. And they didn't have any. But this guy, you will go down in history, this guy, I don't know his name, behind me is like, bro, I've actually got some ibuprofen left over. Do you want some? And I was like, yes, please. So he pulls out his ibuprofen. He's got 600 milligrams, almost a full dose. I was like, thank you so much, dude. And he gave me his ibuprofen. I took it and obviously immediately didn't feel any better. But in a half hour, man, I was feeling good. This is the second wind for me. I've been slogging to this point for the last 10 miles. It's been getting progressively slower. But at this point, I get a second wind because I've passed my high score and I've got some ibuprofen in my system and my cramping stops, which is so awesome. So, yeah. Mile 27, mile 26 to 28. Maybe 26 to 27, there's an uphill, and I was passing people on this uphill, man. I kept going my regular pace. I felt strong. I had trained a lot for uphill in my training, so I was good. Oh, I wasn't feeling as crampy right now, so that was definitely helpful. But I'm chugging up, passing some people. They're like, "You go, dude." I'm like, "You too, man." And we're all just cheering each other on. And then yeah, I say the same thing when I hit mile 28. I'm like, "Dad, take that marathon," and I'm feeling good. And I think it's probably at 27 or 28 that like it's super downhill again, switchbacks. But I have failed to mention that the clouds had started to roll in probably between mile 25 and 27. Like you start seeing the clouds in the sky, and I didn't really pay much attention. I was like focused. And then mile 27, it started to trickle, and I was like, here's that storm. Huh. And it's about 12 o'clock, I think, around this time. Yeah. So that storm came in, or the rain, whatever. So it's just trickling. I'm like, yeah, it's fine. Just keep running. I'm like a little worried. Like, I wonder if it's going to get slippery. I don't know. But just keep running. It didn't get slippery, but dude, mile 28 to mile 29, maybe it was probably closer to mile 29. I'm going downhill. I'm feeling great. I'm passing people all the time. I'm starting to do 10-minute miles downhill, and I'm feeling like on top of the world, just super strong second wind. But it starts to freaking dump rain and and lightning. It starts to dump, and I'm like, it's fine. It's just the last 3 miles. Like, it'll be wet, but like, whatever. We can totally do this. If this was the entire race, that would suck. But this is just the last 3 miles. We can totally do this. Rain. So it's really raining, but I tip my hat down, and that blocks the rain from my eyes. I don't have my glasses on. It was pretty shady and not sunny this race, but never got extremely hot either, I should say. So that was really helpful because I was scared about that. But anyway, yeah, running through the rain. My shoes actually stayed relatively dry. There weren't any puddles really at this point because it's just started raining. It was wet on the dirt, but never got really muddy either. So I kept the pace and was actually running behind that guy that I had talked to at the beginning of the race. I like found him while I was running down, passed up a bunch of people, and then I found him, and he was doing a great pace. And I was like, I'm sticking behind this guy. So we ran. And dude, the lightning was terrifying. I have poles on my back, and there are 3. I remember there being 3 lightning strikes. I didn't see where they were, but the thunder happened like as the lightning flash happened. I was like, oh my gosh, that's really close. It like, split my ears a bit, like, holy frick, I'm on a mountain and there's this lightning storm on this mountain. I don't want to get struck by lightning, but there's literally nothing I can do except for keep running. So I found solace in that. I was like, well, if my time has come, it has, but all I can do is keep going to the end. So it's like I could drop my poles, but they're $170, so maybe I won't do that, which is probably dumb, but I just kept them on my back. And I'm like, not thinking straight at this point, but I just kept running. Okay. And I felt so good. I was checking my watch pretty frequently towards the end, like, get to mile 30, and I'm like, wow, I've run so far and I've literally got a mile left. So I'm checking my watch pretty often, like, how far are we? Are we getting there? Okay. Probably at 3.5 miles, I could hear people, and I was like, we're really close. Or 30.5. We're really close. This is awesome. So a couple more switchbacks down, then cut across. This trail cuts across the mountain and stops switchbacking, and I can hear the people more. The crowd at the end. It's still raining. It's dumping freaking rain, and it's thundery and nuts. The last like 0.1 miles, I got to like that point, I could really hear the people, and there was this hill. There was this hill that was pretty steep at the very end. And I was like, I'm not walking this stupid crap. So I jog up this hill. I passed like 2 people. I passed the guy that I was running behind. He was like, go get it. I was like, let's go. So I go up this hill, like, we're so close, let's go. And then I come out into this parking lot, and there's like people, and then there's this like road, and we come out on the road, and I start following the road because there's like these barriers that like kind of have you fall on the road. And then they're like, I heard some people going, it's over here. And I'm like, what? And I look around, I'm like, the finish line is actually over here because there's no arch because they had to take it down. They took down the finish line arch because the rain and thunder and wind probably. So they took that down. The clock's down too. I have no idea the time it is. I could check my watch, but I haven't been. So I'm like, oh crap. So I like get back onto the route and run across the finish line. I almost got beat by that guy that I was behind, that I met at the beginning. It's like, no. So I kind of sprinted a bit at the end and jumped over the finish line, and I probably beat him by like a second. But man, I crossed the finish line, guys. I did not feel exhausted. My legs hurt. Like they were tired. But mentally, I was awake and I was there. Honestly, like I've thought about it, thought back on this moment. I probably could have ran 50 miles that day. I'd already run a ton of miles. I'd gotten through the wall. I had had my second wind. I probably would have had another low point again if I'd run 50, but I bet I could have run 50 miles that day, which is really cool. Like I had mental energy. My legs were fine. I could have kept going. It would have been hard, but I could have done it, which is super cool to think back on. But, I'd run 31 miles and, yeah, like I was feeling energized, but I was also tired at the same time. You know what I'm saying? Maybe don't. You finished a super long race. So I was tired in one way, and I didn't feel, again, I've talked about this in every episode. If you've listened to other episodes, we talk about like, did you get that feeling? The like super, like maybe even spiritual, but just emotional experience. Like I just did something freaking hard and I am awesome. I didn't get like that super emotional moment again. And I haven't for all of my races. Yeah, I don't know. It's just not how I am, I guess. Maybe I'll get that someday. But thinking back on the moment, I felt good and I felt satisfied having completed a goal that I've worked towards for so long. I planned this 50K a year before I ran it. And so I've just been waiting and waiting and waiting so long to do it. And it feels good having finished it. And I was like, I am an ultramarathoner now. Like up to that point, I hadn't been, but it feels cool. Vain though it is, it feels cool to be able to say to myself, I wouldn't go to other people and be like, I'm an ultramarathoner, but I know personally that I have run an ultramarathon. I have done something incredibly hard that I had to train for, and the training, even with the training, it was still really hard, and I did it, and I pushed through the lows, and I just kept moving even through the cramping and the mental low moment that I had halfway there. So yeah, it happened. I created this podcast to help me run the 50K to become an ultramarathoner, and I've done that. And that is a pretty incredible thing for myself. And I just hope that my hope with the podcast as well was to create a resource, not for just for myself, but also I put it public to help others. So I hope that y'all listening, realize that you can do this thing as well. I've been planning, and I've been on this journey for 2 years now, and here I am. And yeah, you can do it too, just like all the other people that I've interviewed and have done this as well over. And everyone's different. You got lots of different aged people doing these things. People are 60, 70 doing ultramarathons, men, women, parents, single folk, You can make this thing happen. And I recommend to anybody to run definitely a marathon, but to run an ultra marathon, because doing something this hard just builds this confidence in yourself, not just with like physical things and doing physically hard tasks, but doing anything. Like literally, if you put in the time, the training, you can do whatever you want. You can make things happen. You can do hard things. I could build a super business empire if I wanted to and become rich. Like, I just have to put in a lot of time and there'd be sacrifices made. But I could do that. Like, you get this confidence after having done something so hard. Those listening, I just hope you stay on this path and you make it happen. Put in the training and you will be able to do this. Even without the training, you could probably do this. It would suck worse. But you can do this thing. We're almost at 2 hours. This is my longest episode. To wrap things up, what would I have changed? Would I have changed anything training for this thing? I probably would have done more heat training because I felt not confident about that. It should have been hotter on race day, but the clouds and rain made it cooler. It never got past probably mid-70s, but it should have been in mid-80s. And if it had gotten to that point, I would have been suffering much worse. It would have maybe have a different story for y'all. So I wish I had done more heat training, running in the heat. If it had worked and if I had wanted to, adding another run in to get more like 35 miles a week in probably would have made me more strong for that race. Definitely. Like, if the more miles you put in, the stronger you're going to be for the race. Speed doesn't matter. You just got to put in training miles, training time. So if I'd put in more, then I probably would have been stronger. But I don't regret it at all. I felt I was able to do the 50K. I finished strong. I had low moments, but that happens to everyone in an ultramarathon. So I don't regret running three times a week. It works really well for me in my schedule. So I would not have started out so hard. I ran way too fast uphill at the beginning, and I would have taken that more chill. Probably, yeah. I would have done a way slow jog. I wouldn't have walked, but I would have done a super slow jog up that hill instead of trying to rush it. So I wouldn't have gassed out, hopefully, as early. But those are the few things I would have changed. Honestly, it went really well. And okay, another thing that I'd probably say now, but not then, is that strength training at least once a week, but maybe twice a week, would have been a good thing too. I probably would not have experienced that knee pain if I had been strength training. Funny thing is, I have a buddy in my neighborhood named Austin who is a personal trainer, and he's always trying to get me to his garage gym that he has and working out with him. And I'm like, I would rather be running. I'm sorry. I'd rather be on the trails. But in the race, I took a video at mile like 24, 25 and was like, Austin, you're right. I wish I'd strength trained because my knees wouldn't be sucking so bad right now if I had strength trained. So I wish I'd put in one day a week of strength training, squats and leg strength training, but I'm okay that I didn't. But I am actually strength training now to just learn the things and hopefully be stronger for anything that comes in the future. But cool. Well, I end this thing by asking what's next. What's next for me? In the short term, I have no races. I'm running still. I run twice a week, maybe 3 times a week right now, but it's been twice a week so far before I maybe get into the goals. My recovery, I should say, from that race was actually like 5 days. I felt pretty okay the day of, and then the day after it kind of hits, and my legs were so wrecked and tired, and I was back to my baby life, waking up all the time, so I was pretty tired. But I was like able to run again after 5 days, which I was really surprised about. But I guess it's probably that I put in the training, so my recovery was faster. I don't know. I don't know much about recovery, guys, but I'll just tell you that I felt pretty good after 5 days, which I felt was kind of quick and I felt cool about. But anyway, back to my goals. I'm running for fun, for chill. I run on the road like once a week and then on the trail the other day because trail's better, but road is more convenient. And I'm getting into strength training. I'll share with you guys, I actually got some blood work done a week ago. Some things came up in my blood work. I don't really know the extent of the unhealthy stuff going on, but there are some things that could be improved if I did more strength training. I'm like, I work out all the time. Why do I have unhealthy things in me right now? I have like sort of a little gut, but like I don't have dad bod. I look pretty fit, and I am. I mean, I run all the freaking time, right? I'm like, how am I not? How do I have health problems? But I don't think it's major, but I do have some stuff that I need to be careful about. I think there's some high cholesterol in there, so maybe I need to work on my diet. And there's some stuff that came up where if I did strength training, it would help me have more energy because I have some stuff that's low in my system. So I'm going to get strength training because I guess muscle mass improves this thing for me. So yeah, I have started to strength train, which I was so against. If you've listened to any of my episodes, I'm always like, yeah, I'd like to strength train, but I just like running. But I'm doing it now, and it feels good. And I think that I'll be way more open to strength training once I feel comfortable with it and know what I'm doing. It's just hard to do new things. You just feel dumb. Like I don't know what I'm doing, and that's hard to cope with when you're trying to be a macho man that knows everything. So if you humble yourself and you're like, I got to learn this, it's going to be slow at the beginning. Lightweight too, but I'm going to learn these things and then I'm going to be better and more efficient at it because I don't want to weight train for a long time. If I could get it done in 30 minutes, then yeah, I can make 30 minutes happen a few times a week. So that's the goal. I want to weight train for 30 minutes twice a week and build some muscle to hopefully help with my health stuff that's come up, but also it'll help with running. So it's like, yeah, I'm open to it. That's the short term, but the long term, like next year, I'm thinking I'd like to run rim to rim, not rim to rim to rim, rim to rim. For those that don't know what the heck that is, because I didn't either, it's like a ultra trail running lingo here that I'm using, but rim to rim is a route you can run in the Grand Canyon or hike. It's a trail, actually several trails linked together, as most long distance trail running is, but it is running from the south rim to the north rim or the north rim to the south rim. So it's about 24 miles, and depending on which rim you start at and end at, there's a different levels of elevation gain. Yeah. North to south, it's like way downhill the whole time. And then there's a 5,000 foot climb at the very end, like boom, super high climb at the very end. But that's probably what I'll do. I want to go with a buddy of mine who was interested in it as well, and probably do it in May or something next year. No, I can do that. I just think it sounds like a fun adventure. Part of the fun, like half of the fun of ultra running and trail running to me is just having a cool adventure outside. The other half is like pushing yourself and seeing how far you can go and like being impressed with your physical endurance or whatever. But the other half is like, it's just fun to be outside. I've hiked my whole life. I've loved being outside. So this is a cool adventure. Yeah, you see the whole Grand Canyon in a day, you know. I will definitely miss a lot of stuff trail running. Maybe we can take some breaks in the middle and look at stuff. But anyway, rim to rim, I'd like to do that. There's another crazy thing for those who don't know about this route called rim to rim to rim, which is definitely an ultra marathon thing where people start at the north, go to the south, and then come back to the north, or vice versa, start at the south, go up to north and back to south. So you like run it twice. And it's like 48 miles and like 12,000 feet of elevation gain or something. That is not in my prerogative to do because it just doesn't seem fun. And I want it to be fun. doesn't seem fun to run it twice. It just seems like that would be like an ultramarathon endurance feat. But I'm more for this one. I'm just more about like doing something cool, having a cool experience. I've never been to the Grand Canyon, so just it's still going to be physically demanding, but not like to that level. So I'm excited for that. I'm lightly planning that now and hoping to do that in May or something. And if it works out, I know that I'm going to run a 50 miler someday. It could be next year. It could be the next. Maybe I'll do another 50K next year. I don't know. But I would like to do a 50 miler in my lifetime. I know I can do it because I felt like I had energy at the end of that 50K. So I know I can do it. And I want to be able to do that and say that I have done that and have that adventure. So likely it'll be the Dead Horse Ultra, which is in Moab, Utah, or near Moab, I think. Relatively low elevation gain for 50 miles. I think it's like 4,500 feet of gain, which sounds nice. There's 50 milers near me that are like 10,000, 12,000 feet of elevation gain over 50 miles, and I just don't feel like training for that right now. I want to know that I can go 50 miles before I go and add a frick ton of elevation gain, if you know what I mean. Hence why I also chose a 50K that didn't have a super lot of elevation gain as well. Yeah. So we'll see what the future brings, but that's what's up, yo. That's what I'm planning on. I just want to thank everyone for listening. Thank you for being here. Thanks for being on this journey with me. My journey has just begun. I've only just become an ultramarathoner. Your journey is probably even earlier than mine. You may be really just starting this thing and thinking about running an ultramarathon. But you know that I was in your shoes a year ago. You can do this. My last advice is the last question I usually ask. My final advice for anyone getting into would to I don't know. There's so much advice that can be given. It'd probably be to enjoy the journey, because at the end of each race, I don't feel that crazy. I don't feel the crazy emotions like I've done something incredible. But guys, I have a good time running and trail running in the mountains near my home. I love it. It's super fun. I love listening to my audiobooks. I love unplugging from the audiobooks and just being in nature. I love the views. I'm a sucker for a good mountain view from the top of a mountain. Enjoy that. Enjoy becoming stronger. Be patient with yourself. You don't need to be at the 50K right now. Build that endurance over time. Have smaller milestones that take you there, running some half marathons, some marathons, building that confidence and training until you can do this thing. There's no rush. Just enjoy running for running. Enjoy it for the adventure it is outside. Enjoy it for the flow and the endorphins and the good feelings you get when you're running, and have the race be the reward. I've heard that before. The race is that rewarding experience you get, the trophy you get at the end of your training, and then you just keep training because you love running. So that's my advice. Thank you all for listening. Thanks for being here for this long. This is the longest episode ever, but I wouldn't have done it any other way. I've given you all the deets on my training and the 50K experience for me, and I just wish you luck on your own journey. We'll see you guys later. Hey, your host Brendon here. I just wanted to thank you personally for listening to today's episode. As someone preparing for my own first ultramarathon, I've found these conversations to be super valuable, and I hope they are for you as well. Whether you're listening on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or somewhere else, make sure to follow or subscribe so you know when the next episode comes out. Also, make sure you check out the show notes of this episode. There's a link to sign up for the Ordinary to Ultra email newsletter, to join our Facebook and Strava groups where you can meet other people striving to run their first ultra marathon, and see any links that our guests may have provided as well. Thanks again, and we'll catch you in the next episode.